Oh, yeah.
All right.
Welcome to Inside Indiana Overtime. I'm Seth. He's Ben Ladner. We are at Assembly Hall.
That's where we are, right
Yeah.
behind us.
Yeah.
That was our perch.
Rough game for Indiana to start off the Archie Miller era, to start off the 2017-2018 season. A 90-69 loss to Indiana State. There was just nothing good for Indiana that happened in this game. They were dominated from the opening tip, and I mean, Indiana State put on a three-point shooting clinic, and Indiana couldn't throw the ball into the ocean.
Yeah, Indiana State came out blazing hot. They made 8 of their first 10 three-pointers, finished the game. They made 17 of their 26 three-point attempts. And, it's part of you wants to think, you make 17 of 26 from 3. There's just not a whole, you're not going to win that game. If your opponent makes 17 out of 26, you lose. That is just how basketball works most of the time. That being said, there were a lot of things Indiana did wrong that allowed Indiana State to get those buckets, and 2, sort of shot themselves in the foot because Indiana was not really able to muster anything offensively. As rough as things were defensively, their offense didn't look that much better. And so only managed 69 points, but a lot of that was because of the pace and some fast play out of the early going. They were able to put up a few points in the first few minutes. Outside of that, the offense was pretty stagnant, especially in the second half. They turned the ball over 19 times, which, again, it's one of those things where if you turn the ball over 19 times, you lose. I mean, that's not going to win. That's not a winning formula for basketball games. Just so many things went wrong for Indiana. It's difficult to address just one that they might be able to fix. And they've only got one day to fix some of these issues before they play Howard on Sunday. And so it's going to be a really quick turnaround time, which can be helpful because you put the game behind you. But at the same time, you're going to need more than a day to address some of these issues and try to fix them.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, Indiana was without Colin Hartman again tonight. I mean, you got to feel bad for the guy. He just can't catch a break. He tweaked his groin in practice yesterday after it seemed like he was going to be good to go without a minute restriction tonight.
He played 15 minutes in the scrimmage and hit 3 threes, so he looked great and was ready to go.
Yeah, but tweaked his groin in practice, is probably going to miss 2 weeks, maybe more or maybe less. They're just taking it day by day with him at this point. But
the way Archie answered the question in the post game, he said right off the bat, it's going to be a long time. He said this isn't going to be a 1 day, 2 day thing. So that makes you wonder. I don't think they really know. What type of timetable to estimate here, and it could be.
I mean, yeah,
it could be a little while.
It probably was not their top priority. Not that he's not important, but they're very focused on getting ready for tonight's game.
Sure,
although one may question
how ready they really were, which they weren't. I mean, they weren't ready. Indiana State was ready, and Indiana wasn't. That's right. Archie Miller said that after the game as well.
I mean, it was blatantly obvious to anybody that watched the game. I mean, just it almost felt like Indiana State was playing 6-on-5 at some points. I mean, you got to give them a lot of credit because even at times when Indiana was playing solid defense, they hit some really tough shots. It was contested threes, but I mean, there were way too many open threes they gave up, and I mean, especially for Archie Miller to come in and preach that he's going to fix the defensive problems, he's going to fix the turnover problems. You mentioned Indiana turned it over 19 times. I mean, they picked up right where they left off last year.
Yeah, it looked a lot like last year's team. Your point about Indiana State playing 6-on-5, or at least seeming like it, is a good one because Brenton Scott, as many tough shots as he hit all night and as hot as he was from downtown, he had a couple threes where he was just wide open, that's Indiana State's best player, their best shooter. I think he became the second all-time leading three-point shooter in ISU history tonight, or at least approached it. I mean, you can't leave that guy open. You have to know where that guy is at all times, and that's not an effort problem. It is an effort problem, but that's not an execution problem. That's a mental problem. You have to know your personnel. You have to know where the most dangerous threats are. Too many times tonight, Indiana just was not aware of that. They fell asleep on defense, surrendered these wide open looks to the most lethal players on the Indiana State roster. I mean, in a sense, it's no wonder that they shot so well from downtown.
Yeah, I mean, I think my own take on it is that from what I could see, it looked like I think I would attribute it to growing pains with the system.
Yeah. No doubt.
Archie never actually mentioned that, but I think that's what caused these defensive issues. I mean, it just looked like all game, like guys didn't know where they were supposed to be. Yeah. Although they've been working on this system for a few weeks now, I mean probably a month by now at least, it looked like they just learned this system last night.
Sure.
And that's how guys get wide open threes, and of course they're going to drain those. I mean, most college basketball teams are going to drain wide open threes, although Indiana had plenty of wide open threes tonight that they missed. They shot like 22% total. They were as low as 9% at one point.
They were one of their first 11, which not the way you draw it up.
Yeah, and I mean they were missing some layups tonight.
And your point about the defensive growing pains and not knowing where to be, we really saw that in the first half, especially I thought on the pick and roll. We saw a lot of, we've mentioned before, the hard hedging on the pick and roll, bringing the bigs all the way out while the guard recovers. That leaves you vulnerable to corner threes, and Indiana State was really making use of that. They were making the quick pass out instead of the screener, instead of actually rolling to the basket, would pop out to the three-point line because Indiana State has such good shooters. Devin Thomas in particular, a really good outside shooter. He was popping beyond the three-point line a little far away from the play, which means that the big that was hedging had a lot of ground to recover to that shooter. And that was causing the man from the corner, the help defender, to come up to the big who had popped to the perimeter. And then when he received that pass, it left the guy in the corner wide open. That happened a few times in a row where they just surrendered wide open corner threes because of the quick 1-2 swing passing by Indiana State. And they handled that hard hedging beautifully. And then we saw them switch a little bit to a more switching-oriented scheme. Juwan Morgan, in particular, played pretty well in that respect in the second half, where instead of hedging or dropping, they would just straight-up switch the action and take their chances that way, but they still got burned.
Yeah. Offensively for Indiana, it became pretty clear tonight that Deron Davis is the top option for this team offensively. I mean, there were times that he looked like a beast tonight, but I mean, just he can't do it by himself, and B, the thing that another concerning thing for Indiana is he got in foul trouble again. I mean, he ended the game with 4 fouls, I think, but I mean, that's something that Archie Miller and Deron Davis both said. That's something I've been working on this summer, and it's especially frustrating because he really got it going early in the first half and then picked up 2 fouls, didn't play basically the last 10 minutes of the half. And then right out of the gate in the second half, he made a few nice moves, got it going in the second. Indiana State couldn't stop him, picked up a 3rd foul, had to go to the bench, and then came back in, got a couple buckets, picked up his 4th foul. Every time Deron Davis started scoring and started finding his touch down low, he would pick up another foul. And you could see once he got that 3rd foul that Indiana State really started targeting him. They were trying to go at him in the post and try to take as many charges on the other end as they could. And we saw it with Brandon Murphy a lot. The big 6'8", 270-pound forward, they would just try to post him up against Deron and see if they could draw a foul. It worked. He picked up his 4th foul on a lefty hook by Murphy that ended up being an and one. Davis went to the bench for the rest of the game. Yeah. That's something that they're going to have to avoid, especially if Davis continues to look like the top option for this offense. But, I mean, I think that one of the biggest concerns coming out of this game is that Indiana needs to get more from its senior guards. Yeah. So Josh Newkirk and Robert Johnson left a lot to be desired tonight. They shot a combined 2 of 15 from the field tonight. A combined 4 of 15 from the field. Not much better. A combined 2 of 9.
And Devontae Green didn't play all that well.
Right, no. A combined 2 of 9 from three-point land. Total 15 points for combined between Josh Newkirk and Robert Johnson.
And Newkirk didn't play that many minutes either. I mean, he looks like he's in the doghouse a little bit right now because he played the first 8 or 10 minutes of the first half and then didn't play the rest of the half. And then had a turnover to start, I think the first or second possession of the second half, and got the quick hook, and he was out of there. Didn't come back until 6, 7, 8 minutes later. I mean, it just feels like Archie Miller wants to go with a more, Al Durham, Devontae Green, Robert Johnson. He just wants to go with these more versatile guards, guys who maybe can make shots more. I don't know exactly why Archie's been going away from Newkirk, but it's clear that he doesn't have as much trust in Newkirk as he does in some of these other guards.
Yeah, I mean, I know Newkirk missed several wide open threes tonight, and I mean, just
he also made, I think, like a third of their threes because he had one. So
yeah,
he did. He made their second 3 of the game, which that was his only 3, I think, but it was at the time half of Indiana's 3-point total.
Yeah, but I mean, he had 2 turnovers tonight, which I mean, lots of people had 2 or more turnovers on IU tonight, but I mean, just the decision making at times. And also I thought defensively, Josh Newkirk looked out of it a lot of the game.
His box score was not terrible. But you're right. Some of the decision making, it's just he didn't bring the intensity that some other guys did.
I mean, but as Archie said after the game, nobody really did. He called his team soft after the game and said, they were mentally soft. They need a stronger resolve going forward. And you have to wonder what, especially this early in the season, like what can a coach do to work on that?
When I was in high school, it was a lot of running. I mean, at this point in the season, maybe you don't want to run your guys into the ground, but
especially with another game in 2 days.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. Maybe he pushes them harder in practice. Maybe he gets on. I don't know what he said at halftime. I don't know what he said after the game in the locker room. A lot of the time, it can just be a coach kind of laying into his guys. Sometimes the evidence speaks for itself. Sometimes you look at the score and you go back and look at the box score, watch the film. You see the final 90-69. That kind of speaks for itself and says enough because obviously Indiana is the more talented team than Indiana State. They were not tonight, but on paper they are the better team.
And they were at home.
Exactly. And to lose like this at home against an inferior team
on opening night,
in a sense that it's almost on the players to kind of take up their own responsibility and say, look, the coaching is great and telling guys what they need to do is important, but you have to have guys that can actually do it and guys that actually want to do it. And tonight, Indiana just didn't have that want.
And that's the biggest place where I think they miss Colin Hartman because this is exactly what happened in a lot of games last year. Just they needed that. They needed a guy like Colin Hartman to come off the bench, stop the bleeding a little bit, and talk to the guys. And
Exactly.
He's a great asset in terms of communication.
Yes.
And you could tell that he wasn't going to make the difference in a 21-point loss.
Yeah. But not to mention his shooting ability. At least a guy that can space the floor and maybe knock down some shots.
Right, and a great decision maker too. Not that he's going to make the difference. Not that he's the difference between Indiana winning and losing this game because the way the Hoosiers played tonight, they're losing this game if Yogi Ferrell was here. But Colin Hartman.
What about Steve Alford? I don't know. You put Steve Alford behind that line, knock down 7 threes, you're right back in it.
We're getting very hypothetical here. But
you weren't surprised at all that they didn't draw up their 21-point play? I kind of thought they'd bust that out in the final 2 minutes, but I guess they haven't worked on that one enough in practice.
Make it take it.
Even then, not making enough shots to get the ball back.
All right. Well, so Indiana falls to 0-1 to start the Archie Miller era, start the 2017-18 season. The Hoosiers will come back to this building on Sunday night to face Howard to try and turn it around, just at least get something positive going.
Yeah. Seth will be there.
I will be there. Ben will be board hopping. Ben did a good job on the WIUX broadcast tonight.
Well, I tried to. I don't know. I couldn't hear it, but we'll see.
I have faith.
Thanks, man.
But yeah, that's about all we got from an ugly night at Assembly Hall. For Ben Ladner, I'm Seth Howe. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Keep an eye out for IU football coverage tomorrow as the Hoosiers face Illinois.